Most people dream of owning a lake house. I didn't just own a lake house, I owned the entire lake. 3 years ago, I bought 68 acres of forested land with a spring-fed lake smack in the middle. The deal was straightforward. The lake and all riparian rights were mine, the surrounding subdivision only bordered it. Their HOA had easements to walk around it, fish from the shore, and use the shared dock. Nothing more. For 2 beautiful years, everything stayed peaceful. Retired folks fished every morning, little kids skipped rocks, and I sat on my porch sipping coffee while watching the fog lift off the water. Then, of course, the HOA got a new president. And everything went to hell. Chapter 1. Enter HOA Karen. Her real name was Linda, but believe me when I say no name fit her as well as HOA Karen. She strutted into the role like she owned Fort Knox, waving rule books and talking about revitalizing community assets. Within weeks she was firing off newsletters about underutilized lakefront potential. First, she demanded I register my personal kayaks. Then she sent me a warning for having unapproved wildlife feeders. Then she tried charging me guest fees for letting my brother fish off my own dock. None of this stuck, obviously. I shut her down every time by sending her a copy of the property survey with the bold text. Greater than the lake is private property, owned in full by OP. She hated that sentence more than anything in the world. Chapter 2. The HOA's brilliant and illegal idea. Around last summer, I noticed something strange. Contractors, survey stakes, drones flying overhead, and HOA board members huddled around blueprints like they were planning an invasion. One afternoon, I walked over and asked what they were doing. Karen smiled like a shark who smelled blood. "Oh, we're enhancing our community," she said. "A new recreation amenity. It will increase property values for everyone." "What kind of amenity?" "A floating restaurant," she said proudly. "Right in the center of the lake." I blinked. "You know, the lake that I own." She waved dismissively. "Water is a shared natural resource, and this community deserves to enjoy it. The previous board misunderstood the deed. But don't worry, the restaurant foundation will only touch the water, not your land." "My water," I corrected. She laughed. "Don't be dramatic. We already secured funding, permits, everything. Construction begins next week." That was how I learned the HOA had applied for a commercial permit using a map that falsely labeled the lake as community-owned. Claimed I was a non-responsive stakeholder. Told homeowners I approved the project. Oh, that pissed me off. Chapter 3. Construction Chaos. I immediately called the county office. They were surprised. The HOA told them I was unable to attend meetings, and had given verbal approval. I emailed them my deed and survey. Within hours, the county froze the permit. But Karen wasn't backing down. She held an HOA meeting demanding everyone rally behind the community lake restaurant and push the county to override me. Homeowners, excited at the idea of lakeside pizza and boat-up dining, voted 97% in support. Next thing I knew, contractors were hauling equipment across my property line. I stormed out. "Get off my land." Karen shoved a clipboard in my face. "We have legal right of way. You forged permits." She snapped back. "Take us to court then." And so they kept building, ignoring my warnings, stacking pontoons, frames, and decking onto the water. They even anchored it using stakes hammered into the lakebed, meaning they drilled into my land underwater. Every day, my peaceful lake became noisier, uglier, and more infuriating. But I didn't fight them. Not yet. See, I was waiting. Waiting for the moment they were too deep into this project to back out. Chapter 4. The restaurant opens, sort of. 2 months later, the monstrosity was finished. Picture this. A giant square platform floating awkwardly. A tacky wooden restaurant with LED lights. A loudspeaker announcing, "Grand opening coming soon." Cheap plastic buoys marking the HOA water boundary. And a banner reading, "Community-owned Lake Cafe." I wanted to laugh, but homeowners were thrilled. They held parties, took pictures, bragged online about their floating restaurant. Meanwhile, I watched from my porch like a dragon overlooking a horde of clueless adventurers who walked into its cave. Because here's what the HOA didn't know. Owning a lake means owning the water, the land beneath, and full rights to manage, drain, or alter it at will, unless otherwise specified. And my deed had no such restrictions. Even better, years earlier, the previous owner built a drainage control system, a gated pipe connecting the lake to a lower creek. Hidden, locked, unknown to the HOA. I discovered it while exploring my property. And I had the only key. Chapter 5. The plan. I waited until the restaurant was fully built. Until decorations were hung. Until furniture was set up. Until the HOA started selling pre-opening dinner reservations. Then, the evening before their grand opening, I grabbed my flashlight and walked down to the hidden drainage gate. The lock clicked open. I slowly turned the metal wheel, listening to the deep groan of water rushing into the underground pipe. The lake began to lower. Centimeter by centimeter, then inch by inch, then foot by foot. By sunrise, half the lake was gone. The floating restaurant, no longer floating. The pontoons sat at awkward angles as the floating cafe leaned sideways like a sinking ship frozen in time. By noon, the lake was almost completely drained, leaving muck, exposed lakebed, dead cattails, and a very aground restaurant sitting in the mud. I sat on my porch with a cup of coffee and waited. Chapter 6. Karen screams bloody murder. At 1:14 p.m., I heard it. A shriek that could shatter glass. Karen, standing on the cracked mud, staring at her now grounded, floating, dream project. "What did you do?" she screeched as she ran toward my porch. "I drained my lake," I said casually. "Property maintenance. You destroyed our restaurant. Your restaurant was illegally built on my land. You can't just drain a lake." "My deed says I can. And since you anchored into my lakebed without permission, you vandalized my property. That restaurant cost us $380,000. I shrugged. "You should have spent $20 on a property records search." She was shaking with rage. "This is criminal." "Oh, funny you say that," I said. "Because the county inspector is on his way. And so are the environmental compliance officers." She turned pale. Chapter 7. The county arrives. 3 trucks pulled up. County Land Management, Environmental Services, and the sheriff. Karen scrambled to them like a panicked squirrel. "He drained our community lake. He destroyed our structure. The sheriff held up a hand. "Ma'am, according to these records, this is his lake. Yours is the viewing easement. And you have multiple violations. Constructing a commercial building on private property. Filing fraudulent permits. Environmental disruption. Drilling into private land underwater. Trespassing. Misuse of HOA funds." Karen sputtered. "But the community voted for it," the county officer said flatly. "A vote isn't a property deed." Then he turned to me. "Sir, would you like to press charges?" I didn't answer immediately. I let Karen squirm. Finally, I said, "I'll settle for full reimbursement of the lake restoration costs, legal fees, and removal of their structure." The officer nodded. "That's reasonable." Karen looked like she aged 17 years in 10 seconds. Chapter 8. The HOA falls apart. The fallout was delicious. 1. The HOA's emergency funds were drained, pun intended. They paid for environmental cleanup, refilling and rebalancing the lake, professional surveying, full demolition of the restaurant, lawyers, fines for fraudulent permitting, fines for unauthorized construction. 2. Homeowners were furious. They had been promised a restaurant. Instead they got special assessments, higher dues, a destroyed lake, embarrassment. They ousted the entire board within a month. 3. Karen. She tried blaming everyone else until investigators found she was the one who altered the lake map. She was personally fined and held liable for part of the damages. She moved out of the neighborhood shortly after, leaving behind a "for sale" sign that stayed up for 14 months. Chapter 9. Rebuilding my sanctuary. With the HOA broke and powerless, I used my settlement money to restore the lake properly. Within 6 months, water levels returned to normal. Fish populations rebounded. Vegetation regrew. Peace returned. To prevent future issues, I built a large sign at the lake entrance. "Greater than private lake. Not owned by HOA. Trespassers will be prosecuted." Some homeowners apologized to me. Others avoided eye contact. But the best part, the HOA amended their bylaws to state, greater than the HOA acknowledges the lake as private property and forbids any future construction, development, or alteration attempts. Finally, silence, peace. My lake was mine again. Epilogue. A perfect view. Last week, I sat on my porch at sunrise, sipping coffee just like before all the chaos began. The water was still, the birds were singing, fog drifted across the surface, and most importantly, no floating restaurant, just nature. And, if I listened closely, maybe just the faintest memory of Karen screaming in horror as her precious, floating cafe, sat sunken in the mud. A perfect ending.